何してるの?
Today I want to talk about a character I absolutely love. A character who starts as the most relatable person in the room. A scared kid who lost everything and decided he would never be powerless again. And ends as the person who brought the entire world to its knees. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the space between those two things. The part nobody talks about enough. Because before the rumbling, before the founding titan, before all of it, there is a smile. He looks at Mikasa, really looks at her. And for just a second, the real Eren is still there. Warm, present. The boy who grew up alongside her. And then he turns it off. Not slowly, not reluctantly. Like flipping a switch he had been standing next to for a very long time. That smile, and what came after it, is what this video is about. This is Eren Yeager, and this is why you push everyone away when you need them most. He was 9 years old. The sound came first. Something enormous. Something wrong. And then, while Maria was gone, and his mother was in the rubble, still alive, still reaching for him, and he couldn't move. Someone was holding him back, and a titan was there. That's where Eren Yeager's story actually begins. Not with the rage, with the stillness, the specific horror of being held back, of watching, of surviving something that the person next to you didn't. His brain wrote a rule that night that no amount of training, no amount of power, no amount of titan shifting would ever fully erase. If you are not strong enough, the people you love die in front of you. So he made a promise, the kind you make at 9 years old when you have nothing left. And the grief needs somewhere to go. Kill every last one of them. Not a plan, a reason to keep existing. Then came the 104th. Mikasa, who had been beside him since before any of this. Armin, who believed in things Eren didn't know how to believe in yet. Connie, Jean, Historia, Sasha, loud, warm, always eating. The kind of person whose presence makes a room feel safer without anyone saying why. For a while, this worked. Not perfectly. Eren was never easy. He pushed too hard, argued too much, but he sat with these people. He laughed. He let Armin talk him down from places he would have jumped from alone. The dream of freedom and the reality of these people existed in the same space for a while. He didn't know yet that he would have to choose between them. When they finally reached the basement, what was inside wasn't just the truth. It was the entire architecture of a world built to destroy people like him. Eldians, Marlians, the history they had never been allowed to know. The walls were never protection. They were a cage. The people inside had been lied to for generations, contained, reduced, made manageable. And underneath all of it, something more personal. His father had chosen him, injected him, set everything in motion before Eren was old enough to understand what motion meant. His mother's death, his rage, every moment that had made him who he was, all of it part of a chain someone else had started. For a boy who had built everything around refusing powerlessness, learning that the most defining night of his life had been predetermined, that broke something, quietly, in a place he never let anyone see. Then Sasha died. A gunshot. Simple. Stupid. The kind of death that has no weight to match what it takes from you. Connie was crying. Mikasa was holding herself together the way she always held herself together. Armin looked like someone had removed something from him that he didn't know he needed. And Eren laughed. Not because it was funny, not because he didn't feel it, because he had already seen it. He had touched Historia's hand, and the future had opened. And he had seen Sasha die, and he had seen what came after. And he had walked into every moment since knowing exactly where it was going and not being able to say a single word to anyone. That laugh wasn't cruelty. It was the sound of someone who had been carrying something completely alone for too long and had no other way left to let any of it out. Grief, when it has nowhere to go, starts making sounds that look like other things. He started pulling away after that, not loudly, quietly, the way you dismantle something you can't bear to look at directly, piece by piece, from the edges inward. He showed up to conversations like a door left slightly ajar, present enough not to raise alarm, closed enough to let nothing through. And then came the moment. Mikasa. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for just a second the real Eren was still there. The boy who had grown up beside her, who knew her before any of this, who, in a different life, might have let himself stay exactly here. And then he turned it off. Not slowly, not reluctantly. You're just a slave to your Ackerman instincts. What you feel for me isn't real. He chose those words exactly. He knew what they would do. He knew where they would land. He chose them because of it. Psychologists call this preemptive abandonment. You become the source of the wound before circumstances make you the cause of something worse. You make the person you love build a wall against you, because a wall is survivable. What was coming wasn't. He didn't say those things because he believed them. He said them because she needed to stop believing in him while she still had time. The smile was the last honest thing he gave her. The cruelty that followed was the most protective thing he knew how to do. When the walls crumbled and the Titans marched, the world outside Paradis started dying. Millions of lives, cities gone, coastlines erased, generations ended before they began. And somewhere inside all of that, Eren Yeager, 17 in his memory, still holding a 9-year-old's promise he never learned how to put down. His friends, the 104th, the people who had once been his only reason for anything, stood on the other side now. Fought him, had no choice but to become the ones who tried to stop what he had become. He needed that. He needed them to be the ones who ended it. Not because he wanted to be stopped, because stopping him would give them something to carry forward. A purpose that survived him. A story that didn't end in grief alone. He built the monster so they could slay it. And they did. Before the end, Eren spoke to Armin, not to justify, not to explain, just to say for the first time what had been true the entire time. That he didn't want to die. That he wasn't sure it was right. That he had seen the future and walked into it anyway because he couldn't find another door. And that not being able to tell anyone had been the heaviest thing he had ever carried. Armin listened, and when it was over, he said the only true thing left. He was our friend. Past tense, but carried like it would never fully become past tense. In the end, it was Mikasa. Of course it was Mikasa, the person he had pushed hardest, wounded most deliberately, told with words chosen like weapons that nothing she felt was real. She was the one who reached him. She held his Titan form as it collapsed. She understood, the way only someone who had loved him that long could understand, that the boy inside the monster had been trying to protect her the entire time, and she was the one who ended it. She held his severed head in her arms. No rage, no relief, just grief that doesn't perform itself. The kind that sits there, too large for any expression to hold. She kissed him, said goodbye to the boy she had known before the walls came down, before the basement, before the smile that disappeared. And in that moment, the cruelest irony of Eren Yeager's entire story landed fully. The person he had worked hardest to push away was the last thing he ever felt. He had spent years making sure she could survive losing him. He never once stopped to consider what it would actually cost her to do it. Eren's story isn't about titans or walls or freedom. It's about what happens when someone who needs people more than anything becomes convinced that needing people is something they can no longer afford. Most of us know some version of that feeling. Not at Eren's scale, but the instinct is the same. Go quiet when things get heavy. Handle it alone rather than hand it to someone who said they would hold it. Become difficult before anyone has the chance to leave on their own terms. We call it protecting ourselves. Sometimes we even convince ourselves we're protecting them, but underneath, it's almost always the same thing. Love that didn't know how to stay without costing something. Eren Yeager had people who had proven, repeatedly, that they would carry anything. He just decided, somewhere between a basement full of truth and a future he couldn't unknow, that this was finally something he had to carry alone. And Mikasa, holding him at the end, proved him wrong. Not because he survived, because she was there anyway. He pushed everyone away, and the one person he pushed the hardest never actually left.